Why wasn't Italy occupied after World War II? Of all the major Axis powers that lost World War II, Italy was the only one to avoid occupation. Unlike Germany, it wasn't split into zones and placed under Allied control. Unlike Japan, it wasn't forced into a constitutional overhaul under foreign supervision. Instead, Italy lost its empire, was disarmed, and paid reparations, but within just a few years, it was rehabilitated and rearmed. So why? Why wasn't Italy occupied like the rest of the defeated Axis powers? Italy's unusual path to defeat. Italy's fate was sealed the moment it surrendered in 1943. While Germany and Japan fought to the bitter end, Italy's King Victor Emmanuel III removed Mussolini, switched sides, and declared war on Germany. The country was then split in two, the south under Allied control, and the north held by the Germans and Mussolini's puppet regime, the Italian Social Republic. For the Allies, the priority was clear: defeating Germany. The fight against Axis forces in Italy was already difficult enough without having to govern millions of civilians. Instead of setting up a military occupation, they worked with Italian officials who had switched sides. Many former fascist bureaucrats were quietly left in place, not because the Allies liked them, but because they were useful for keeping the country running while the war continued. Italy's post-war situation. After the war, the occupation of Germany and Japan required massive resources. Italy, however, wasn't seen as a high priority. Unlike Germany, the Soviet Union had no troops in Italy, meaning there was no immediate risk of the country falling to communism. Though Yugoslav communists had briefly pushed into northern Italy, they were removed before they could gain influence. Another key factor was anti-communism. Many former officials in Italy were staunchly opposed to communism, and with the Cold War beginning, that was good enough for the Western Allies. The US didn't want to push Italy too hard, especially since the country was a potential ally against Soviet influence in Europe. Why Italy was treated differently. Unlike Germany and Japan, Italy didn't provoke the same level of vengeance from the Allies. Japan had launched a brutal war in the Pacific and attacked the US at Pearl Harbor. Nothing short of total occupation and surrender would be accepted. Germany had committed atrocities on a scale that made full occupation a necessity in the eyes of the Allies. Italy, on the other hand, was seen differently. Yes, Mussolini had been an Axis leader, but by the end of the war, Italy was almost an afterthought. It was viewed as a weak state, not a serious long-term threat. Italy had also switched sides, which gave the Allies a reason to be more lenient. The British and French wanted harsher restrictions, particularly against the Italian monarchy, but the US had the final say. And for the US, keeping Italy stable and on the western side of the Cold War was more important than punishing it. The long-term effects. Italy lost its empire, was banned from having nuclear weapons, and had strict military limitations. But by 1949, it joined NATO, and suddenly, rearming Italy became a necessity. The same country that had been an enemy just a few years earlier was now a frontline defense against Soviet expansion. In the end, Italy escaped the fate of Germany and Japan not because of mercy, but because of Cold War pragmatism. The Western Allies needed Italy as an ally, not as an occupied state. And just like that, Italy went from Axis power to NATO member, avoiding the harsher consequences of total defeat. What do you think? Did Italy get off too easy, or was it simply a case of political necessity? Let me know in the comments.